Hey, greetings everyone. Bleakon here, back for another episode of Lore of Warcraft. Thanks for tuning in. On our last episode, we continued our journey as the Horde through the Stone Talon Mountains. I actually was just playing off camera with my wife. Ashenvale with the Alliance, and we ended up kicking back for some more of those Stone Talon missions. So there's some parts that are long, but as far as what we did, we really didn't do a ton. We just kind of did the seeds of Gaia, and we planted or picked those up for planting later, and just collected a couple of ingredients. But really, we ran around on this quest line that sends you to Thunder Bluff, and you talk with Magath or Grim Totem, and you kind of start doing this sinister act where you're gonna use the Forsaken techniques to poison the Venture Coast. So we then traveled for half the episode to get set up to get that. Some of the ingredients we need for that toxin. Now, we've also been reading through the World of Warcraft magazine, and this magazine is a now defunct operation that covers all kinds of things. Last time we just talked about the really cool DC comic run, which we actually looked up during the episode. You can still buy them. They're a little bit marked up now, anywhere from 40 to upwards of almost, a couple $100 for each one. But you can still find them. It's not even like they're strict like an eBay only thing or whatever. That you can, looks like they're still kind of in production, or they're at least available. And we even found some on Walmart or whatever. Like they're out there, and they are really cool. And that was really the in-depth dive that we did. So stay a while and listen as we jump in now. We're going to get to have a lore heavy, I think, which we're going to talk about the two side factions from Classic. And side-by-side factions, that means ones that don't have a capital, in the gnomes and the trolls, and how they're revamping their story for their starting areas for Cataclysm. We're going to start with the gnome side in the fight for Gnomeregan. Mekatork wants you. Mekatork wants you. And we're going to give the same treatment to the trolls. The Gnolls have been displaced from Gnomeregan for several years due to a series of unfortunate events. Around the time of the Third War, the Trogs surfaced from the depths of Azeroth and overran the gnomes, becoming entrenched in the lower sections of the city. The problem then was how to get rid of these invaders. Mekatork turned to his chief advisor, Mekjanir, Sicko Thermoplug, who made a radical proposal: flood Gnomeregan with toxic radiation. Mekatork agreed and made the order to irradiate the city. The plan was a catastrophic failure. Although the Trogs became irradiated from the toxic assault, their siege continued unabated. The radiation proved far more harmful to the gnomes. Nearly 80% of the gnomish population perished, and many of the survivors mutated into deranged leper gnomes. Mekatork evacuated the survivors, who were taken in by the dwarves of Ironforge. Not all gnomes left Gnomeregan, however. The Thermoplug remained behind and seized control of the city. Old Sicko there. Such as it was, it is rumored that Thermoplug actually knew of the Trog invasion before it began, and that he orchestrated the events that befell the gnomish race. Though these reports were never verified, Mekatork believes they could be true. We're getting close-ish to doing Gnomeregan and Classic, and that'll add some insight into what we're going to read here on the back end. Mekatork ordered that Thermoplug be exterminated, and groups of adventurers reported success in that mission. However, it appears that these groups had defeated only a clever mechanical facsimile of Thermoplug. We're going to have to keep that in mind when we fight him. Now Mekatork is gathering forces to put an end to the real Thermoplug and reclaim Gnomeregan. Picture of some dudes. Actually, those are the guys from, right outside Ironforge. Pitching in. Here they're riding some Mechanostriders. Players who wish to assist Mekatork and the gnomes can report for duty in the Tinkertown section of Ironforge. The first step is assembling a band of volunteers and herding them and yourself through some rigorous training exercises. Once you are trained in the ways of the gnome army, it's time to set up some monitoring stations. You can't send the troops into a toxic trap, and learn how to operate the mechanical forces. An army isn't just made of fit troops and state-of-the-art armaments, though. Mekatork realizes that the hearts and minds of the people must be behind any operation, and he intends to create an inspirational speech. You can help by using an ingenious playback device to show the proposed speech to various victims and volunteers. I think this is that pre-release series of events and quests that they often have before each expansion. This is what's going on at that point. Quests that you can't access now. So I'm hoping in Wrath Classic we can access this quest line. Troops, check. Weaponry, check. Morale, check. Time to roll into Gnomeregan and teach Thermoplug a thing or two. As you go through the preparation quests and then get sent on reconnaissance missions in the air, you start to get really excited about getting Gnomeregan back to its rightful owner, says Morin of Destramath US. It does tell a pretty good story of the dissension between Mechatork and Thermoplug. It really makes you dislike how things happened in the past. Meet the leaders. Well, there's Gelbin Mechatork. That's a pretty dang cool Mechanostrator that he has. The holder of the office of High Tinker, Mechatork is a brilliant inventor. His credits include the Deep Run Tram, and he is held in high regard despite the Gnomeregan fiasco, which weighs heavily on him. Although he brought the Gnomeregan evacuees to the shelter of Ironforge, he realizes that it is a temporary solution and spends most of his energy devising strategies to get the gnomes back to their home. This picture of some explosions, probably for some airstrike type missions. Oh, and that's it. Now we're going to get to, from the flip side, as we're liberating the Isles Man, honor of the ancestors, join the fight. Vol'jin need you. Alright, so target Echo Isles. The Darkspear tribe has a long history of displacement. Long ago, the Darkspear were driven from the mainland of Stranglethorn Vale by the Gurobashi trolls, taking shelter on a remote island. Unfortunately, that home was destroyed by a mysterious sea witch. The Darkspear turned to the Horde for assistance, and Thrall granted them the Echo Isles off the eastern coast of Durotar. Again, this home would not be permanent. The witch doctor Zelazane eventually went insane, stripping the free will from the Darkspear trolls on the island. To protect his people, Vol'jin ordered them to leave the Echo Isles. Currently, the tribe resides in Sen'jin Village, directly across the water from Zelazane's stronghold. It is from Sen'jin Village that Vol'jin plans to launch an offensive to kick Zelazane off the Isles, clearing the way for the Darkspear to return here. Return there, I mean. But hold on. Didn't we kill Zelazane? We brought his head back to Master Gadrin a long time ago, right? Right, that's one of the earliest quests we did on camera. While many adventurers sought to make their mark by slaying Zelazane and thought they'd done so, it was all an elaborate trick played by the crazy witch doctor. The head of Zelazane that adventurers brought back to Sen'jin Village returned to its actual form after a few days. Painted rocks, coconuts adorned with tusks, and even the heads of Zelazane's enslaved trolls. So what we did in that actual cool skull that we had, all of that was fake? Question mark. Now the time to strike at I mean, of course, there's got to be a little bit of bending, a little hand waving. Now the time to strike at Zelazane has come. This picture of this quest line that's going to happen there against Zelazane with this massive mask. Evicting Zelazane. Players begin the adventure in Sen'jin Village, where the first assignment will be to prepare for a bit of reconnaissance. It would be folly to launch an attack without having some idea what your force is up against. Your goal will be to assemble a rather unusual team of spies and deploy it in key areas of the Echo Isles. Along the way, you'll discover a possible ally to recruit to the Darkspear cause. Everyday citizens will need to be on board with the plan as well, so you'll be tasked with recruiting some volunteers from the area around Sen'jin Village. With the spying and recruiting done, it will be time to join Vol'jin in an epic assault on the Echo Isles. Kaitsuburi, an orc death knight on Dentarg EU, was impressed by Vol'jin's efforts. I totally regret I'm not a troll. It's cool looking. There's some kind of albino raptors as well. And let's meet the leader, Vol'jin. The leader of the Darkspear tribe, Vol'jin, is known to be one of the Warlord Thrall's main strategic advisors. Vol'jin has made the Darkspear tribe a vital part of the Horde, and he played a key role in retaking the Undercity from Varamathras and Putris. Vol'jin founded the colony of Sen'jin Village in order to save his tribe from the mind control of the mad Zelazane, and he now uses it as the headquarters for his plans to retake the Echo Isles. And bonus items, while these fights are aimed at freeing the gnomish and troll homelands, any race can take part. However, for the good of the armies, it's best that everyone fit in. To help with that, you'll get a special item that makes you appear like a troll or gnome. These items are perfect for keeping unity in the ranks, and as a special treat, you'll get to keep yours. Oh, that's cool. I wish I had those kind of toys. All right, so that was a shorter thing than I thought. I really thought we were going to do a much deeper dive, and instead, we're going to get to a PvP tactics section. Well, not terrible. This is my least favorite type of article in this magazine series, but we're going to do it. Storming to Victory. My guess would be this is going to be about the Eye of the Storm battleground because it looks almost like a Blood Elf sword here. The word Storm, it's probably PvP. This is all my conjecture that this is Eye of the Storm PvP. The signature battleground of Burning Crusade Eye of the Storm artfully melds elements of Arathi Basin's resource accumulation mechanics and Warsong Gulch's flag-running objectives to create a unique battleground experience. To emerge victorious, players need to constantly shift their strategies, balancing attacking and defending towers with capturing the flag, all the while making sure the enemy doesn't outmaneuver their team. This is probably my least favorite PvP map as well. So how should players fine-tune their battle plans to ensure all the bases are covered? Marshal Aylwyd and Lieutenant Commander Peace, Zul'jin, U.S. veterans of many a Netherstorm skirmish, have been talking to PvPers to gain insight and understanding of this fluid and fast-paced 15-on-15 battleground. Their mission to look beyond battleground-specific biases, myths, and learn what preconceptions and learn what it takes to emerge victorious. Here's their report, presented in a back-to-basics format designed to help all Eye of the Storm combatants understand how winning tactics might be deployed and how potential pitfalls might be avoided in this tricky battleground. That is a Blood Elf and their Paladin fighting a Draenei, wizard or something. So it's in the Netherstorm. The objective is to capture towers and occupy them to accumulate resources, so kind of tower defense. Capture the flag in the center of the battleground and bring it to a tower controlled by your faction to earn additional resources. Maximum players 15 per team. Win conditions, accumulate the 1600 resources. It's open to any players 61 and above, and the level brackets are 61. That's basically the 60s, the 70s, and level 80. Okay, so let's look at Eye of the Storm basics. And here we have a person on a zebra mount. You got a Moonkin form. There's a Scourge, it looks like. So a Death Knight. That's maybe a Blood Elf Death Knight. In Eye of the Storm, teams can generate resources two ways. By capturing and holding towers, and also by picking up the flag that spawns in the middle of the battleground and returning it to a base they control. Over the years, there has been much debate over which players should prioritize, but when it comes down to it, the numbers do not lie. Here's the way Eye of the Storm works. Resources from the tower, when you control 1, you get 1 per second, 2, 2 per second, 3, 5 per second, and 4, 10 per second. And you get, if you control 1 tower, you get 75 if you capture a flag. 2, you get 85. 3, you get 100. And 4 towers, you get 500 when you capture the flag. This means if both teams control 2 towers for the entire game, the team that captures the flag the most times will win. And if a team controls 3 towers for the entire battle, it won't matter how many flags the other teams capture. They'll not be able to generate more resources than the team controlling 3 towers. Thus, it becomes clear that capturing towers should be prioritized over capturing the flag. In a stalemate type situation, capturing the flag will swing the balance in your favor. So in preparation, like every PvP, buff up. I say this every time, but the additional strength that buffs give all characters can help tip the balance in your faction's favor, especially during the initial stages of any battleground, says Peace. And in Eye of the Storm, what happens during the first few minutes can set the tempo for the rest of the game. Fail to make headway initially, and the momentum can swing in favor of your enemy and put you on the back foot. So go out swinging, buff to the nines. Now, in the initial rush, in most battlegrounds, the events that unfold during the first few minutes can set the tone for the rest of the battle. In Eye of the Storm, that is particularly true. Jumping down from the starting platform and consolidating your position by capturing your towers as quickly as possible is very, very important in an Eye of the Storm battle, says Aylwyd. Start out quickly and you can gain the advantage, allowing you to harass the enemy almost from the get-go. Start off too slowly and you might end up being pushed into a defensive position where you end up having to defend your towers, allowing the enemy to start carving out a lead by capturing the flag and generating more resources. Peace explains further, let me give you an example to think about. One team goes out of the gate as fast as possible altogether. 7 players go to one tower, 8 to another. They capture their towers very quickly and immediately go on the attack. Meanwhile, the other team is much slower to start and start arriving at their towers in 1s and 2s. That means they're capturing their towers more slowly, but before they know it, they find themselves being attacked by the coordinated group, maybe even before they've captured their own towers. The attacking team has the momentum, and if they're successful at turning one of those towers, they will be in a very strong position. Yeah. Most of the time, though, the game plays out with a stalemate that I've experienced. It's more common to get the stalemate, and capturing the flags matters. That's an extreme example, but it illustrates what we're talking about in terms of needing to be ready to go as soon as the battle starts. Okay. Being fast is important, but the team also needs to ensure that it's coordinated. If you're running with a pre-made group, discuss your strategy before you start and make sure everyone knows what they need to do, recommends Aylward. If you're playing with a pug, coordinating the team can sometimes be a challenge, but try calling out a very basic strategy to at least get everyone on the same page. Something as simple as sending group 1 to one tower and group 2 to another can help ensure your forces spread themselves out reasonably intelligently at the beginning of a battle. I've seen it's shocking how many times you play and that doesn't even happen. I've seen battles begin to go horribly wrong within the first minute or two because of things like too many people going to the middle, players rushing an enemy tower and not stopping to cap theirs first, or people simply not going to one of the towers. If you see things like this happening, don't freak out and start yelling. Simply call out what's going on and suggest where people might need to go, and always be prepared to step in yourself to help out at a tower or go where you need it. Yeah, that's the problem with PvP. Also, the yelling, the complaining happens so fast. Tower tactics. Capturing towers is very straightforward. If you have more of your players in the tower zone than the enemy players, you'll slowly but surely gain control of the tower. The greater the disparity between your players and theirs, the faster the tower will turn. Pack attack. One of the fundamental rules of any battleground is safety in numbers, says Aylward. Moving together is especially important in Eye of the Storm because you need superior numbers to capture a tower. Attacking 1s and 2s, and not only will you likely get picked off with easier, lesser numbers mean you won't even move the bar in your favor. So group up and go in together and ride right up to the tower. Don't let the enemy engage you outside of the tower zone where your presence is ineffective. Peace has more advice. If you do manage to kill most of the tower defenders, concentrate on preventing them from getting back into the tower zone quickly by cutting them off at the graveyard. Characters with AoE slowing, fear, or entrapment effect should go camp the enemy graveyard and deploy them as soon as the enemy reses. That way they're being kept out of the tower zone for a precious few seconds, which can help you capture the tower. Just make sure enough people stay at the tower to continue turning it. Characters that are stealth don't count as being in the tower zone, so if you want to help your team capture a tower, make sure you're visible, reminds Aylward. There's all these tiny little things here that are showing you why I like this map less. Does it help to be a rogue? Not really, other than perhaps for the speed for capturing the flag. Okay. Does it help to be able to do the things that a rogue does best, which is quickly going in and taking out one person? No, you got to mob deep in all setups. Holding up the enemy. If an enemy group attempts to attack a tower you're defending, try to move toward them and engage them outside of the tower zone, recommends Peace. That way they're not turning the tower. This will also give you the advantage. If you get killed, you'll res at the graveyard and can join the defenders again very quickly. If an enemy player gets killed, they'll end up back at the closest tower they control and won't be able to help their friends anytime soon. Sneaky cap. The tower capture zone extends a fair distance away from the tower, and enabling sneaky players to sit out of sight, slowly turning it to their favor. I can't tell you how many times I've helped capture an undefended tower simply by sitting behind it out of sight, says Aylward. If no enemy players can see you, they won't be alerted to what's going on, and most players resing in their graveyard often rush off in search of adventure rather than checking the status of their tower. Just remember to call for help as the tower gets close to being neutral. As soon as the tower turns to neutral, an alert will sound, and the enemy will likely rush back to defend. Flag strategies. Capturing the flag is an important way of gaining additional resources and is often the key factor between winning and losing if both teams control the same number of towers. Successfully running the flag requires a certain amount of control over the battlefield. Here's some good ways of making sure you can keep the flag train running without interruption. And Peace says, bear in mind that the well-known word adage that no plan survives contact with the enemy. That's a real-life one. Running a flag train. Optimal flag running requires a couple of flag carriers. Requires that one person should run the flag while the other waits in the middle, usually with some kind of backup. Since the flag respawns fairly quickly after it's captured, the person in the middle can then grab the flag and run it back to the tower while the prior flag runner returns to the middle. This kind of relay tactic delivers the fastest possible flag capturing and also ensures that there's at least one person defending the flag. While anyone can run a flag, characters with speed running abilities are the best choice. Defending the middle. A resilient healer DPS combo and characters with knockback effects are great for holding the middle, suggests Peace. Survivability is more important than outright killing ability. Staying alive long enough for your teammates to reach you if you need help is key. One thing to remember though, if the enemy team attacks the middle with a large group, that means their towers will very likely be lightly defended, so instead of calling for reinforcements, suggest a tower attack and make a heroic last stand holding out in the middle as long as possible to buy time for your teammates to capture a tower. Diversionary tactics. If the enemy is busy defending their towers, it's more difficult for them to also run the flag. If you're in a 2 towers versus 2 towers situation, take the initiative and make sure your team is always pressuring at least one enemy tower. Identify and call out the least defended tower, group up and move in together, says Aelwyn. Keep harassing the enemy and pressure their tower zone. This kind of situation is a win-win. If you're on the attack, the enemy will need to draw in players from other areas of the battlefield to defend their position. If they don't, they'll lose their tower and you'll gain a huge advantage. If they do, other targets will become more vulnerable. The important thing is to watch what's going on and call out the new target as soon as you begin to see your attack being broken down by the defenders. Holding the flag. Cap smart, says Aelwyn. Don't capture the flag if the enemy controls the middle. That means they'll gain the initiative by grabbing the flag when it respawns. Wait at your tower until your faction reestablishes control over the middle and then cap it. Also be aware that the more towers your team controls, the more points you get for the cap. If it looks like you're going to gain a tower, wait until it turns before capturing the flag. Likewise, if you see a tower being attacked and you might lose one, don't wait around. Cap it quickly and go help your teammates defend. Peace adds that both teams control 2 towers, but your team is ahead on points. Holding the flag can be a good tactic. The only way the enemy can win is by capturing another tower or by grabbing the flag, which your team can make very difficult by hunkering down and going into a full-on defensive posture. When you're about 90 points from victory, capture the flag, and that should be enough to give you the win. If you're going to turtle like this, though, make sure you watch the enemy like a hawk and get players to where they need to be. All right, reading the battle. This is that bridge in the middle. No matter how well prepared your potential Eye of the Storm strategy might be, something you must always bear in mind is the well-known war adage that no plan survives contact with the enemy, says Peace. We just read that. So what should you do if your plans don't go well and you need to improvise? A trait shared by most successful Eye of the Storm veterans is their ability to read the battlefield, quickly assess what the enemy is doing, and work out how to outmaneuver them, says Aelwyn. If you know where the enemy players are, you also know where they aren't. For example, if there's a bunch of enemy players fighting in the middle, that means a tower is probably lightly defended. Look at the closest one, and if that has a bunch of defenders, you can quickly deduce that the other one is the place to attack. Peace agrees. As soon as you start thinking ahead of the enemy, it forces them to react to you, giving you a huge tactical advantage because you're dictating the pace of the battle. In a situation where teams are equitably geared and skilled, the team that takes the initiative will almost always tip the scales in their favor. The key is ensuring you communicate clearly so your teammates can assist you quickly and efficiently. Reading the players. Understanding how many Battleground players play the game can also help give you an advantage, reveals Peace. I hate to generalize, but many players don't think very strategically, especially if they're playing in a pug, and often look to the closest source of action and head toward it. That's basic human nature. And why you often see clusters of players doing strategically disadvantageous things like fighting in the middle of the battlefield in Warsong Gulch, or skirmishing on the road between nodes in Arathi Basin. In Eye of the Storm, you'll often see a similar type of clustering occurring, and experienced players are always watching for it. When it happens, look for the farthest enemy tower from where players are fighting and head toward it. Since players aren't rezzing there, because they'll be rezzing at the closer tower to where the fighting is happening, it will likely be lightly defended. Just make sure you call out the attack so you can get help. Makes sense. Good communication is fundamental to any successful battleground strategy, says Aelwyn, especially in a large battleground like Eye of the Storm, where it's often difficult to see what's going on elsewhere. It's imperative that players call out enemy movement. The sooner your teammates are aware of what's going on, the sooner they can react and get to where they need to be. A poorly defended tower can be turned fairly quickly, even by a handful of enemy players, and sometimes your teammates might have a lot of ground to cover to get from one tower to another, so call enemy movement early and call it often. Okay, so we have Eye of the Storm tactics. This is general tactics here. They have you kind of flooding out, because it's basically a mirror image on both sides. Team opening strategies. There are numerous opening gambits that you can deploy in Eye of the Storm. Here are our 5 favorites. All of these strategies involve breaking down your team of 15 into smaller groups and require each group to move together and coordinate as a cohesive unit. Therefore, these tactics are recommended for use with either a fully pre-made team or a partially pre-made team where there are enough players working together so that the rest of the group can be assigned easy-to-understand tasks. That's not to say these tactics won't work with a pug, but generally speaking, the key to making them work is players moving together as coordinated units, something that you definitely need to stress to your teammates. When you are breaking the team down into smaller units, make sure each group has a good unit mix of at least 1, but preferably 2 healers, and a good selection of DPS characters with both high burst and crowd control capabilities. So tactic 1 is called Flood Rush. You'll get 2 tower cappers on your side, individually operating very resilient players such as a paladin, druid, or disciplined priest. 1 attack team is 6, 1 attack team is 7. So going across the bridge there. The objective is a fast rush out of the gate when the team tries to capture all the towers, or at least 3. And the instructions are to assign a faction tower to each tower capper and an enemy faction tower to each attack team. Each tower capper rides to their assigned faction towers to slowly capture it while also monitoring the battlefield to call out attackers and general enemy movement. The two attack teams should rush their respective enemy towers. It's very important that the attacking groups ride right into their target's tower zone so they can start turning the tower immediately, reminds Aelwyn, and it's imperative that none of them dismount early or stop outside the flag zone. Remember, strength in numbers. So go in together and fight close together. The tower capper should call for help if they need it. Call in the number of attackers so that sufficient attack team members can break away from their group to successfully defend. As soon as the threat is eliminated, they should return to their target tower. If the team captures 4, everyone should move up to below the enemy starting zone to lock down the opposing team. If the team captures 3, the 2 closest towers should continually pressure the remaining enemy tower to keep them in a defensive position, while the remaining single tower capper continually monitors the situation to call out potential enemy threats if they become apparent. Alright, and here's Weathering the Storm war advice. This is like mini quick hit advices from Eye of the Storm experts. I often cast Slow Fall on my teammates just before the start. Besides being able to quickly float down to the tower can help by extra seconds, says Aelwyn of the US server Zul'jin. Never underestimate the power of Thunderstorm and Typhoon. Correct use of those can win deadlocked EOTs, Eye of the Storm games, Cotillion and Stag WS. The flag is just a bonus, it's not the key to victory. Focus on the bases, says Tranchard of Medivh European server. Paladins turn off Crusader Aura, otherwise your team might miss the tiered rocks below and even possibly fall to their death. Because of the strength. Dr. Sexy Time of Rivendare in the US says that. Okay, thanks Dr. Sexy Time. Here's a second strategy. You're essentially going to your 2 towers, then finding a way, flying or floating across the bridge, while a core of your attack goes up the middle. One holding team of 3, which is your center, preferably Plate Wearer, Healer, and Crowd Controller, and then 2 attack teams of 6. Capture and hold the 2 towers, run the flag, and harass the enemy. Designate a faction tower to each attack team. Each team needs to have 3 players nominated for reinforcement duty. Both attack teams ride to their respective faction towers to capture them. The team of 3 should ride to the middle to hold that position and start running the flag. At this point, the holding team needs to start reporting enemy movement. If the middle is not being attacked, the holding team should call out an enemy tower to attack, since they have the best view of the battlefield and can see which tower is the least defended, explains Pete. Whichever team is opposite that tower should move in and attack. Yes, that means no defenders. The point is not necessarily to capture that tower, but to pressure the enemy to draw in their forces and let the holding team continue to run the flag. If the middle is attacked, the holding team needs to call in reinforcements. Whichever attack team is under the least pressure should send their 3 nominated reinforcement players to help out. However, if the middle comes under an attack by more than 6 enemy players, that probably means a tower is lightly defended, so the attack team closest to the least defended tower should move in for the cap, while the holding team simply lasts as long as they can and then move back to defend whichever tower they left behind. Keep the pressure off your holding team in the middle by constantly attacking the enemy towers. Make sure that your team moves in together. Don't attack individually or you'll get picked off and throw your attack into disarray. One of the keys to success with this strategy is ensuring that the 2 attack teams quickly respond to what's going on. To make sure that happens, the holding team needs to have an experienced player responsible for making snap decisions and accurately calling out team movement. Okay. Both attack teams need to get forward. Oh, this is for the last one, as soon as possible. That's for this one. Paladins should use Crusader Aura, but only when everyone has jumped down. Tower captors should be calling out all enemy movement since they have the best view of the battlefield. Yeah, that was for the last one. If you find yourself all alone at a tower, like it or not, you are the defense, so don't leave, says Heavy, the Sisters of Elune in the US. If your enemy holds 3 towers, the one that lies diagonal to yours is the one that's the most likely to be the least defended. Okay, says Warwick Die Aldor of EU. Eye of the Storm is a healer's battleground because the longer you stay alive and keep your teammates up, the easier it is to hold or take a node, says Basharak of Suramar. Attack from the back of each tower. It catches opponents off guard at times, says Superman, Skillet US. Alright, strategy 3 is called Cap and Rush. So this is, yeah, you're just exactly what it said. You're not even going up the middle at all. 1 attack team of 7, 1 of 8. Objective, capture your faction towers and then immediately attack both enemy towers with a coordinated strategy. Designate a faction tower to each attack team. This is one of the more straightforward tactics, and it's fairly easy to explain. So it's recommended for a team that's just starting out together, or even a pug, consisting of experienced players, says Aelwyd. Two teams ride as quickly as possible down to their designated faction towers, pausing briefly to capture them. Then, as soon as they're secure, they immediately attack the faction tower opposite the one they just turned, leaving behind no defense. The key to making this strategy work is each team moving together cohesively. Ride down to the towers together and attack the enemy together, not stopping outside of the tower zones, but instead of riding right into the heart of the enemy's position. Against most teams, this strategy can yield a very strong opening position, often resulting in the capture of one enemy tower, and if the opponents are slow out of their gate, it can sometimes even result in a 4-tower cap situation. If this happens, the team should ride up the enemy's starting position to lock them down. This classic strategy is very easy to execute as long as the two attack towers are able to move together as a unit. As in all battlegrounds, strength in numbers is the key. Ensure that the DPS characters target the enemy healers first, and that they do so in a coordinated fashion. Control characters can provide vital help by keeping the enemy DPS characters off the team's healers. Okay, here's some more one-hits. Keep the flag at one tower and only turn it in when you hold 3 towers and if the turning point is free of enemies, says Geysors of Gilneas European Union. European server. If you don't see the tower capture bar, you're in the wrong spot. Don't fight on roads, and fighting at the flag is fighting on a road. It's typically better to spend most of your time at enemy bases instead of at your own, says Thortalk Nerjul US. When you're defending a tower, staying alive at a tower is the most important thing. Use of line of sight. Use line of sight to make it as difficult as possible for the enemy to kill you and as much time as possible for your teammates to come and help you, says Patora of Zul'jin in the US. So here's the last two. We have the 3-node lock we're going to read first. So first of all, just a quick hit on that one. Before we get into what it is, it says the moment each attack team's tower turns, they need to ride forward and start piling on the pressure. Success with this strategy is contingent on keeping the enemy on the back foot. So again, 3-node lock. This is kind of showing you coming down. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. The solo tower capper should be responsible for calling all enemy movement. Their communication can be vital to helping the team be coordinated. This seems like a more complicated strategy. So you have attack team of 8. That's the one that caps and goes. Attack team of 6 caps and goes. And one single tower cap. They don't even cap and go. They just straight go and cap, then move up there. And then a single tower capper. An advanced 3-tower attack strategy designed to push the enemy into a defensive posture almost from the outset. Designate a faction tower for the 6-person attack team and tower capper. The 8-person attack team will rush the enemy tower opposite the one designated to the single tower capper. The attack team of 6 rides to their faction tower to capture it. The tower capper goes to his or her designated tower, while the attack team of 8 rides to their designated enemy tower. If this strategy works as intended, the 8-person attack team should gain control of the enemy tower, at which point they can then begin to pressure the remaining enemy tower by mounting a constant attack from their position, explains Peace. The 6-person attack team should also support the continued assault on the single remaining enemy base by constantly sending in people to harass the enemy. Meanwhile, the tower capper should continue to monitor the battlefield, call enemy movement, and capture the flag if the opportunity presents itself. Okay, so that brings us to the last one, called Total Domination. It looks like you stream out right off the bat to cap the enemy tower sides, then move back to cap your own towers. This all-out strategy can deliver a swift victory if it works, but only try it out if your team is experienced, well-coordinated, and fully geared up. Failure to execute this strategy properly will likely result in the team being put in a defensive position that will be hard to recover from. So you need one attack team of 7, one attack team of 8, with 2 nominated tower cappers that run back. Rush the enemy faction towers and back cap your own towers while the bulk of your forces lock down the enemy. Designate a faction... Yeah, you'd have to automatically have the dominant force. Designate a faction tower to each attack team. Each team needs to have 2 nominated tower cappers who will return to back cap their faction towers when the enemy towers are taken. This is an extremely risky strategy and is only recommended for very strong pre-made teams with a lot of experience, warns Aelwyd. The objective is for each attack team to go all out and rush and capture the enemy towers from the get-go. Just understand that if this tactic backfires, your team will end up rezzing at their starting area a long way from the battle, enabling the enemy to push forward and possibly, definitely, gain the advantage. Peace agrees. It's very risky, but if your team has the strength and confidence to pull it off, it can be a simply devastating opening gambit that can push the enemy back to their starting position almost immediately. At that point, your team can take full control of the battlefield and either kill the enemy mercilessly or run the flag a few times to quickly finish the game. This is definitely a death or glory strategy, but who doesn't like to play for those kinds of high stakes every now and then? It might be fun killing people, but don't lose sight of the objectives. Having an excellent game statistically is not worth much if you end up losing the overall battle. Rosha of Norganon in the US says, when attacking, always fight within the enemy's base territory. You want to quickly take away the enemy's control of the base to cut off the respawn in the graveyard. Filet of Kiljin EU says that. However, when you play this, 90% of the time it's just people fighting on the bridge in the middle. The narrow paths connecting the north and south halves of the map make the offense the best defense, because they have to run right by the node. Nova Flame of Whisperwind US says that. Rocket Boots, Parachute, Elemental Shaman, getting the flag before anyone else, and laughing at all who dare approach. Just make sure you aim your jump correctly, says Ike Storm of Elune. Keep moving, force your adversary to react constantly to your actions, and he'll always be running after you, says Enroth Rashgaroth in EU. Alright, so we are getting pretty dang close here. I think there's a pretty solid chance we wrap this up on the next episode. We've got about 20 pages left. I really think so. Now, next time we will get some lore. It's a feature article on the legend behind the Doomhammer. So that's going to be a cool one. And I think it'll probably be it'll be a night where I'll be willing to spend a little bit more time. So I think we'll probably bust out the rest of this issue on the next episode. But this episode, in the pipe 5x5. Hey, thanks everybody so much for watching, for listening, for tuning in. I love being here. Thanks you. See you next time on the next episode of Lore of Warcraft.